The world knows Clint Eastwood as the ultimate symbol of strength, the man who conquered Hollywood with his steely gaze and quiet confidence. For over 7 decades, he stood as the face of American grit, the cowboy who never lost, the detective who always got his man, the director who delivered masterpieces that touched the soul. But now, at 95 years old, the reality is far different, and it's heartbreaking beyond words. A man who spends most of his days in solitude, health fading, energy gone, memories of his glory days playing in his mind like old film reels. The same man who directed cinematic masterpieces and walked the red carpets now battles the cruel reality of aging behind closed doors. And perhaps the most shocking truth? Clint Eastwood knows the end is near, and he has already made preparations for his final goodbye. The question is, what will happen when that day comes? What will Hollywood do when its last great cowboy rides into the sunset for the final time? This is not just a story about a movie star. This is the story of a man who gave everything to the world, and is now quietly facing the most heartbreaking chapter of his life. Stay with us until the end, because what we've uncovered about Clint Eastwood's life at 95 will leave you speechless. Long before Clint Eastwood became a household name, he was just another young man trying to find his place in the world. Born on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, California, Eastwood entered life during the Great Depression, a time when hardship was the norm and dreams often seemed like distant luxuries. His parents, Clinton Eastwood Sr. and Margaret Ruth, worked hard to provide for their family, instilling in young Clint a strong work ethic that would later define his career. As a boy, Clint wasn't particularly exceptional in school. In fact, by his own admission, academics never interested him much. He was tall, lanky, and introverted, often feeling like an outsider. Yet, he had a quiet determination that hinted at something greater. After high school, Eastwood held a string of blue-collar jobs, working as a lifeguard, grocery clerk, and even a logger. At one point, he enrolled at Los Angeles City College but soon dropped out, realizing that the traditional path wasn't for him. It wasn't acting that first called to him, it was survival. In the early 1950s, Clint was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. While he never saw combat, his military service was a formative experience. After being honorably discharged, Clint returned home with little more than ambition and the hope of a better future. Hollywood wasn't waiting for Clint Eastwood. In fact, the odds were stacked against him. Casting agents dismissed him as too tall, too stiff, or too expressionless. His early auditions were met with rejection after rejection. But Clint didn't give up. He took acting classes, worked on his craft, and accepted any small role he could find, sometimes for little or no pay. Then, in 1959, after nearly a decade of obscurity, opportunity knocked. Eastwood landed a role on the hit television series Rawhide, playing the rugged cowboy Rowdy Yates. At last, the world was starting to notice Clint Eastwood. His striking looks, towering frame, and stoic demeanor set him apart from his peers. Audiences were drawn to his understated charisma, a quality that would become his trademark. Rawhide was more than just a job, it was the launching pad for Clint's future stardom. Week after week, millions tuned in to watch him, and Hollywood began to take notice. But even then, few could have predicted just how far this quiet, determined man would go. By the early 1960s, Clint Eastwood had achieved moderate success, but he was far from a superstar. That would change in 1964, when an Italian filmmaker named Sergio Leone offered him a role that would alter the course of cinema history. The film was A Fistful of Dollars, a low-budget spaghetti western that no major Hollywood actor wanted to touch. Eastwood accepted the part, and in doing so, he redefined the western genre. Shot in the sun-scorched landscapes of Spain, A Fistful of Dollars introduced audiences to the man with no name, a mysterious, poncho-wearing anti-hero with a cold stare and a quicker draw. Unlike the clean-cut cowboys of classic American westerns, Eastwood's character was morally ambiguous, a gunslinger driven by survival and profit rather than virtue. This gritty realism resonated with audiences, and the film became an unexpected hit. The success of A Fistful of Dollars led to 2 sequels, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. Together, these films became known as the Dollars Trilogy, and they propelled Clint Eastwood to international stardom. Suddenly, the once struggling actor was a global sensation. With his steely gaze, laconic dialogue, and aura of danger, Eastwood redefined what it meant to be a leading man. He was not a clean-cut hero, he was something far more complex, an anti-hero who reflected the changing values of the 1960s. These films didn't just entertain, they influenced an entire generation of filmmakers and set the stage for Eastwood's dominance in Hollywood. Financially, the trilogy was a goldmine, but its cultural impact was even greater. Directors like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez would later cite Leone's films, and Eastwood's performances, as major influences. Suddenly, Clint Eastwood wasn't just a television actor who got lucky, he was a bona fide movie star, an international icon whose name was synonymous with cool. But Clint wasn't content with fame alone. He had bigger ambitions that would soon take him from acting into directing, shaping him into one of the most respected filmmakers of all time. If the Dollars Trilogy made Clint Eastwood a star, Dirty Harry made him a legend. Released in 1971, the film introduced audiences to Harry Callahan, a tough-as-nails San Francisco cop who played by his own rules. With his .44 Magnum revolver and an unshakable sense of justice, Dirty Harry was everything Eastwood's fans loved: fearless, uncompromising, and cool under pressure. The film was a massive success, but it also sparked controversy. Critics accused Dirty Harry of promoting vigilantism and excessive violence. Feminist groups protested, claiming the film glorified toxic masculinity. But for millions of moviegoers, those criticisms only added to its appeal. Dirty Harry wasn't just a cop, he was a symbol of law and order in an era of social upheaval. The character became so iconic that it spawned 4 sequels: Magnum Force, 1973, The Enforcer, 1976, Sudden Impact, 1983, and The Deadpool, 1988. Each installment cemented Eastwood's status as a box office powerhouse. Lines like "Do you feel lucky, punk?" entered the cultural lexicon, and Clint Eastwood became more than a movie star, he was a cultural phenomenon. But while fans marveled at his on-screen toughness, few realized that Clint was quietly preparing for a transition behind the camera. He wasn't just an actor, he was a storyteller with a vision. And soon, the world would discover that Clint Eastwood wasn't only a Hollywood tough guy, he was a master filmmaker destined for greatness. Away from Hollywood's glare, Clint Eastwood nurtured other passions. Music was one of them. A jazz aficionado, he composed scores for some of his own films and often retreated to music as a source of peace and creativity. Another passion was his love for golf, a sport he played well into his later years, even as age began to take its toll. Through it all, Eastwood managed to maintain an image of control and confidence, even as personal dramas unfolded behind closed doors. To his fans, he was the ultimate man of mystery. To those who knew him best, he was a deeply private man, fiercely protective of his personal life but never afraid to live on his own terms. For decades, Clint Eastwood seemed invincible. Even as he entered his 70s and 80s, he maintained a vigorous lifestyle, directing and acting in films while others his age quietly retired. His discipline was legendary. Eastwood followed a strict diet, avoided smoking, and practiced fitness routines long before it became trendy in Hollywood. But age, as relentless as time itself, began to catch up. The first whispers of health concerns surfaced in his late 80s. Observers noted his increasingly frail frame during public appearances. His once powerful stride grew slower, and his signature commanding posture seemed to soften. Rumors of back problems circulated, fueled by photographs showing him slightly hunched or leaning for support. Clint Eastwood never liked talking about his health. True to his private nature, he dismissed speculation and continued working. Films like The Mule, 2018, and Cry Macho, 2021, were seen by many as testaments to his resilience, a refusal to let age dictate his art. But those close to him knew the truth: the long days on set were taking a toll. Years of performing his own stunts and maintaining a grueling schedule had left their mark. By his 90s, concerns deepened. Sources close to Eastwood hinted at mobility issues and persistent pain. While he never made his medical conditions public, it was clear that his once boundless energy was waning. Fans, too, noticed the changes. Each rare photograph sparked discussions, with admirers expressing both admiration for his longevity and sadness at seeing their hero slowed by time. While Eastwood has always valued independence, aging can be isolating, even for the strongest among us. Rumors of heart issues surfaced, though never confirmed by Eastwood himself. Friends described him as slower and more reserved in recent years. Once an unstoppable force, he now spent more time at home, away from the Hollywood limelight. For a man who had defined himself through action and control, the gradual surrender to frailty was profoundly difficult. There were whispers of depression, an inevitable companion for many in advanced age. Losing contemporaries and close friends added to the weight. Actors he once shared the screen with, filmmakers he collaborated with, many of them were gone. Eastwood himself acknowledged the loneliness that creeps in as the years pass. In interviews, he spoke of mortality with stoic acceptance, but behind closed doors, the reality was harder to bear. Statements from those close to him paint a picture of quiet dignity. He spends his days reading, listening to jazz, and taking slow walks when his health permits. His children visit, but not as often as they once did. For fans who remember him as the indomitable gunslinger, this image is heartbreaking. a stark reminder that even the greatest legends cannot escape time's grasp. Hollywood is not the same industry that Clint Eastwood dominated for decades. Once upon a time, his rugged silhouette defined masculinity on the silver screen. Today, the industry is driven by superheroes, CGI-laden blockbusters, and trends dictated by streaming platforms. The era of stoic gunslingers and gritty anti-heroes has long passed, and with it, the archetype that Clint Eastwood embodied so perfectly. In the 1960s and 1970s, audiences flocked to theaters to see him in Sergio Leone's westerns or as the hard-edged cop in Dirty Harry. Back then, his mere presence commanded attention. But now, younger audiences often know him only as that old actor from their parents' generation. His name still carries weight among cinephiles, but the mainstream spotlight has shifted toward new icons, franchises, and short-lived trends. For Eastwood, this change was inevitable, and perhaps he even welcomed it. He was never one to chase fads. His films remained true to his storytelling style, grounded, character-driven, and morally complex. While the industry raced toward special effects spectacles, Eastwood focused on human stories. Films like Gran Torino, $1 Million Baby, and American Sniper. They were critical successes, proof that authentic storytelling still mattered. Yet, the cultural noise surrounding him faded. The film industry's obsession with youth and novelty has made it harder for legends like Clint to stay visible. Streaming giants prioritize algorithms and audience metrics over the kind of artistic risks Eastwood thrived on. For a filmmaker who built his legacy on instinct and individuality, this new Hollywood feels foreign. And yet, Clint never complained. When asked about changing trends, he simply shrugged, "Things change. You either roll with it or you don't." His stoic acceptance mirrors his screen persona, unmoved by chaos, quietly determined to walk his own path, even if it means being the last cowboy in a land that no longer remembers the old ways. For all his success, Clint Eastwood has not been immune to the financial and legal challenges that plague many public figures. Over the years, he accumulated immense wealth from acting, directing, and producing. At one point, his net worth was estimated at over $375 million. Yet, managing such a fortune brings its own battles. In his later years, Eastwood faced lawsuits that tarnished his otherwise untouchable reputation. One notable case emerged in 2021 when he sued CBD companies for falsely using his name and image to promote their products. The case was widely publicized, and Eastwood eventually won, but it highlighted a harsh truth: even icons are vulnerable to exploitation in the digital age. There were also persistent rumors about estate disputes. Questions about how his vast fortune, properties, and business interests would be divided among his 8 children. While most of these reports remain speculative, sources close to the family hint at tensions simmering beneath the surface. Multiple relationships, multiple heirs. Such complexity almost guarantees conflict, even for a man as respected as Clint Eastwood. Beyond the headlines, maintaining his lifestyle and properties also became a challenge. Eastwood owns several homes, including his beloved Carmel estate, which he purchased decades ago. These properties, while a testament to his success, require significant upkeep, something that grows increasingly difficult as age and health concerns limit his ability to oversee them personally. For fans, the idea of Clint Eastwood facing financial or legal stress in his twilight years feels unjust. This is a man who gave everything to cinema, who built a legacy that will outlive us all. And yet, reality spares no one, not even the legends who seemed untouchable. If there is one tragedy that eclipses financial struggles or fading fame, it is loneliness, and Clint Eastwood knows its weight all too well. At 95, life has slowed to a quiet rhythm. The cameras are gone, the applause has faded, and the world that once revolved around him now spins without pause. Reports suggest that Eastwood spends much of his time alone at his Carmel home, surrounded by memories rather than people. His once bustling household is now serene, sometimes achingly so. The death of old friends and co-stars has deepened the solitude. Names like Eli Wallach, Sergio Leone, and countless others, once constants in his life, are now gone. Each loss chips away at the familiar world he knew. His children visit when they can, but their own lives pull them in different directions. The absence of a stable romantic partner adds another layer to his isolation. After his divorce from Dina Ruiz in 2014, Clint never remarried. Companionship, once abundant, is now rare. Psychologists often warn of the emotional toll of isolation in the elderly, and even a man as strong-willed as Clint Eastwood is not immune. Loneliness can be as corrosive as illness, and for someone who spent decades in the company of crews, casts, and adoring fans, the quiet can feel overwhelming. Yet, there is dignity in how Eastwood faces this solitude. He fills his days with music, reading, and long walks when his body allows. Sometimes he visits the Carmel mission, sitting quietly in reflection. In those moments, one imagines him thinking about the life he lived. The triumphs, the scandals, the laughter, and the heartbreaks. For the millions who adored him, the image of Clint Eastwood alone is almost unbearable. This was the man who stood unflinching against outlaws and villains, the man who turned silence into power. And now, silence is all that surrounds him. For decades, Clint Eastwood represented an ideal: strength, independence, and resilience. He was the man who never backed down, the hero who never showed fear. That's why the recent images of him looking frail, leaning on a cane, and appearing tired have sent shockwaves across the world. To see Clint Eastwood, Hollywood's eternal cowboy, diminished by age feels almost unnatural, as if time itself had broken a sacred promise. When these photographs first surfaced online, social media exploded with emotion. Fans from every generation expressed heartbreak. Messages like, "I can't believe this is Clint Eastwood, my childhood hero, and seeing him like this makes me want to cry" trended across platforms. Hashtags like #StayStrongClint and #ThankYouClint appeared worldwide. It wasn't just sadness, it was collective grief for the fading of an era. Even celebrities and filmmakers paid tribute. Directors like Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, and Steven Spielberg spoke about how Eastwood shaped their craft. Actors from all generations, from Tom Hanks to Bradley Cooper, shared stories about what it was like to work with him, calling him a mentor and an icon. Why does Clint Eastwood's decline feel so personal? Because for millions, he was more than an actor. He was a symbol of an America that valued courage and individuality. His films were rites of passage, moments fathers and sons shared, stories mothers introduced to their children. To see him grow frail is to confront the mortality of an entire generation. It is a reminder that even the strongest heroes cannot outrun time. At 95, Clint Eastwood lives a life far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. He spends most of his time at his Carmel-by-the-Sea estate in California, a serene property overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a place he has called home for decades. The man who once commanded massive film sets now moves quietly through hallways lined with memories. Oscars on the shelves, posters from his greatest films, and photographs of family scattered across the rooms. His days are simple. According to those close to him, Clint wakes early, often before sunrise, a habit he's kept since his youth. Breakfast is light, and he still favors healthy eating, though his appetite has waned. He takes slow walks when his body permits, sometimes along the beach, sometimes through the gardens of his property. Music remains his solace. He listens to jazz for hours, occasionally playing piano when strength allows. Reading occupies much of his time, mostly history and classic literature. Television rarely interests him, though he occasionally revisits old films, including some of his own, almost like visiting old friends. Who cares for him now? A small, trusted circle, family members, a few longtime staff, and a private nurse who ensures he remains comfortable. Visits from children and grandchildren brighten his days, though they are less frequent than before. Age has made travel difficult for everyone, and Clint understands this with quiet acceptance. He has spoken about mortality in interviews with remarkable candor, once saying, "When you're my age, you don't waste time worrying about death. You make the most of what's left." Those words ring truer now than ever. Clint Eastwood is not afraid, just reflective, grateful, and at peace with the life he lived. In today's digital age, where rumors spread faster than truth, Clint Eastwood has been killed off by the internet more times than anyone can count. Each time, headlines scream that the legendary actor has passed away, only for representatives to issue statements clarifying that he is alive. These hoaxes have become so frequent that fans no longer know what to believe until confirmation comes from a credible source. But behind the false reports lies a sobering reality. Clint Eastwood's health is indeed fragile. He rarely appears in public, and when he does, his frailty is evident. In many ways, these fake reports feel like grim rehearsals for the inevitable news that will one day arrive. Family members and close friends have largely remained silent on details, respecting Clint's wish for privacy. When asked, they often say the same thing: Clint is doing as well as can be expected for his age. It's a diplomatic answer, but it carries a quiet truth. At 95, every day is a gift, and every moment is borrowed time. These rumors highlight a broader cultural phenomenon: our struggle to accept that legends, like all of us, are mortal. Each false report triggers a wave of grief, reminding us that the day will eventually come when the headlines are real. And when that day arrives, the world will pause, not for a movie star, but for a man whose life story became part of our own. Clint Eastwood has always been practical, a man who faced challenges head-on without sentimentality. That pragmatism extends to how he prepares for his final chapter. Sources close to him suggest that his estate planning is complete, with clear instructions on how his fortune, estimated in the hundreds of millions, will be divided among his 8 children. His properties, including his beloved Carmel estate and his ranches, will likely remain in the family. There is also talk of preserving his personal archives, scripts, letters and behind-the-scenes footage, for historical documentation, ensuring that future generations understand his impact on film. As for how he wants to be remembered, Clint has expressed little interest in grand gestures. "I've had my time. Let the work speak for itself," he once said. That humility defines him even now. While Hollywood will almost certainly hold a massive tribute upon his passing, Clint himself favors simplicity, a private service, attended by family and close friends. Rumors about funeral plans circulate online, but nothing official has been confirmed. Some speculate that Carmel Mission Basilica, where he often sought quiet reflection, may be part of his final wishes. Others believe his ashes will be scattered at sea near the coast he loved so much. What is certain is this: Clint Eastwood's name will live on, not just in movie credits, but in the hearts of millions who found strength, courage, and hope in his characters. He may be preparing for the end, but his story will never truly end. If you were moved by Clint Eastwood's incredible journey and the heartbreaking truth about his life at 95, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos about your favorite legends. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and for keeping Clint's legacy alive.